the small town of St. Clair, deep in the French countryside, the war once seemed like a distant storm. Until one day, it arrived on their doorstep. It was 1943, and German soldiers now patrolled the cobbled streets. Their heavy boots echoed against the ancient stone walls, turning the once tranquil town into a place of silent fear and unspoken defiance. Life had changed overnight. Curfews were strict, rations were scarce, and everyone lived in the shadow of suspicion. But amidst the tension and uncertainty, one unassuming woman dared to stand against the darkness. Meet Claudette Bernier, a seamstress by trade. Petite, quiet, and reserved, she lived alone in a modest house filled with bolts of fabric and the steady hum of her sewing machine. Her husband had been killed in the early days of the German invasion, leaving her with an empty home and a heart full of unspoken grief. But beneath her gentle demeanor, Claudette harbored a smoldering fire, a defiance that no uniform or gun could extinguish. One cold evening, long past curfew, a knock echoed at her door. Claudette hesitated, heart pounding. She knew opening the door could mean life or death. Taking a deep breath, she unlatched it. Standing before her, framed by shadows, was a young man in tattered clothes. He couldn't have been more than 19. His face was smeared with dirt and desperation, a lost soul in a foreign land. "Please, I need help," he whispered in broken French, his voice trembling. "They shot my friends. I'm the only one left." Claudette glanced up and down the street, fearing German patrols. She knew the consequences of what she was about to do. Harboring an Allied airman meant certain death, but something inside her snapped. Taking another deep breath, she pulled the young man inside, bolting the door behind them. The next days were a blur of tension. Claudette hid the young airman named James in her attic. Each night, under the cover of darkness, she brought him food and water. They spoke in hushed whispers, sharing stories of their lives before the war. James told her he was an American pilot whose bomber had been shot down over the French countryside. The Gestapo had begun searching for downed airmen, combing through every town and village. Claudette knew it was only a matter of time before they knocked on her door. Yet, despite the imminent danger, she made a decision. "I can't let you stay here," she told James one night, her voice barely more than a whisper. "You'll be found eventually. We need to move." "You'll be killed if they catch you," James protested, his face lined with worry. "Why are you doing this for me?" Claudette's gaze softened. She thought of her husband, of all the others who had suffered in silence. "Because someone has to," she replied simply. Claudette knew of an escape network, a series of safe houses and brave souls who helped stranded Allied soldiers return to safety. But reaching them meant crossing miles of treacherous ground patrolled by German soldiers. Dressed as a Red Cross nurse, Claudette led James through back roads and forests under the cover of night. Their footsteps were muffled by the thick underbrush, and every snap of a twig sent a jolt of fear through their bodies. At one checkpoint, a German officer stopped them. His gaze lingered on Claudette's forged papers, eyes narrowed in suspicion. "What is your business here?" he demanded. "My cousin is ill," Claudette lied calmly, her heart pounding. "This boy is my nephew. We're bringing medicine." For a tense moment, the officer's gaze flickered between them. Claudette held her breath. Then, with a curt nod, he waved them through. By dawn, they reached the safe house. Members of the resistance quickly took James in. Arrangements were made to smuggle him to Spain, and from there back to his unit. Before he left, James turned to Claudette, tears brimming in his eyes. "I owe you my life," he said. "I'll never forget this." Claudette offered a sad smile. "Then live it well, and tell others what you saw here. Tell them about the people who fought, in their own small ways." Claudette returned to St. Clair, where life resumed its oppressive normalcy. She never spoke of what she had done. The war dragged on, and the town continued to suffer under its weight. But deep inside, Claudette knew she had made a difference. She had defied the darkness, if only for a moment. Years later, after the war had ended, a letter arrived at Claudette's doorstep. It was from James. He had survived, married, and started a family. He had named his first daughter Claudette, in honor of the woman who had risked everything to save him. Claudette held the letter close, tears of relief and joy filling her eyes. She knew she had done her part. A small, whispering voice of resistance in the roar of war. And sometimes, a whisper is all it takes to turn the tide. Claudette Bernier's courage and selflessness saved a life and became a testament to the power of quiet resistance in the face of overwhelming darkness. This was her legacy, a whisper of hope in the long, silent night of war.